Welcome to the Chief's Garage. This is the final in our series of the rebuild of an 8.8 traction lock differential. We've already got everything cleaned up, as you've seen in the previous videos, and I'll link them below. That we basically pulled this out of the car. We've already cleaned and preserved everything. I've disassembled, measured everything. And now with the reassembly, I will show you how I'm going to go about this, starting with the carrier, and then we'll get our pinion all set up and get our rotational resistance in that. And once we get it all together, I'm going to run a pattern, show you guys how I ran the pattern, and we'll go from there. Let's get into it. So this is where we are. I've already taken time to press on the new inner pinion bearing. I did that by sacrificing the old bearing and taking the inner race out. In order to do that, I basically just cut the cage, took all the bearings out, and of course I have the inner race. And I needed this because I didn't have something that actually fit the inner race of the new bearing. So now this had become my press tool. And so after putting this in the press, I pressed the inner bearing on, and inside of this I have the original shim. The original shim was 25 thousandths, so I'm starting with that. And I'm doing this under the thought that most people probably wouldn't have the $450 Ford tool for doing this and setting up the shim on the first try. So I'm going back to what was in there, and then we'll work our way from there. So now that I've got the bearing pressed on and the shim in, the next thing that we need to do is set our bearing preload. I've already measured the original crush sleeve, and it came out to 443 thousandths. So I've also taken the time to set up my crush sleeve eliminator. I've took the eliminator, added a shim to it in order to get to 445 thousandths. And this is going to be my initial try to see where this ends up. So as we go along, I'm going to put the crush sleeve eliminator on and install the pinion in the differential. Of course, I'm going to use the old drive shaft flange to go onto this. I've already got my nut that I've made up for testing, and I'm going to set a torque wrench to 25 foot-pounds. And once I put this in, I'm going to torque it to 25 foot-pounds and check the rotation. What I don't want to do is overcrush the bearings in this process. So once you've reached your 25 foot-pounds of torque on the nut, I'm going to check the rotational resistance. And since it's a solid crush sleeve, if you tighten it tighter, it won't tighten anymore. Once you get to where this and the inner race of the outer bearing are in contact, that's it. So we're going to go from there, and I'll cue you guys back in when we get to that point. Okay, so we've got the pinion and the preload all set up after 7 tries. And it's a little finicky because it took a little bit to get this exactly where I want it. And I wanted it to run around 20 inch-pounds. And reason being is, as this wears in, it will loosen up a little bit. And so the maximum's 29 and with a base of 16. So my rotating force right now is right at 20, 21. 21. So with that in mind, I'm going to pull this all apart because we need to take a run out on the carrier face. So in order to do that, I'm going to take the pinion back out. I'm going to mount in the carrier itself. I'm going to set up a dial indicator, see how true the face is, because if the face of the carrier isn't true, if you're following the manual, then putting the gear and all of the parts in it would be kind of useless, since we would have to change the carrier. So I'm glad I took the time to set up this crush sleeve eliminator. And like I said, it took me about 7 tries. about one and a half thousandths between being too loose or being too tight, and trying to get the right combination of shims so that I could get that that running inch-pound preload. So it took a little finicky, but you know what? I got patience and I got time. So let's move on to the next piece. See you with the carrier in the unit, and we'll also be setting up the dial indicator. Right now I have the carrier mounted inside of the housing and with the new bearings, and I'm using the original shims in this setup. Off camera I took the time to press the bearings on. Basically I sacrificed the old carrier bearings, took the inner races and used those in the press to press the new bearings on. Now that I've got the new bearings on, I've got the carrier in with the original shims, the spacers that came in it. It's a good tight fit here. And there's an important part of your setup that not everyone does, but I think it's important, and that's to determine the face run out. So mounted up in the carrier right now, I have the dial indicator set on the face of the carrier, and this is where your ring gear will sit. And I'm just checking to see how true that is. I've already marked it at 0 so that when we make a full revolution, of course, we'll kind of know where we are, whether we're to positive or negative on our dial indicator, and that'll tell us how true the flange is. And as we pivot that around, there is one spot here, and that's 90 degrees, and we're still we're at negative half there. And we'll keep turning. We're still negative half. This is 180 and we're back to 0, which I really like because it's opposite. The opposite is 0. And we'll keep rotating it around. This is at 270. 270. I see 0. And right here we're going to lift up just a little bit so we don't hit that bump. And a half. And when I get back to 0, I'm at 0. So guys, we're going to call that really good. So from here, I'm going to pull the carrier back out, and it's a pretty good fit. It's got a pretty good preload on it right now. We're going to prepare the ring gear assembly, and then we'll go on with the ring gear on and get the pinion back in, which we've already set up with our crush sleeve eliminator. And let's see how much backlash it has in it, and then that'll tell us whether we need to add or remove, or whether I can use the original setups. Now the originals came out when I took the ring and pinion off with these original shims. I had a backlash of 10. One of the things that I didn't have was I had no preload on the pinion. It basically had, like, you know, 1.5, 2 inch-pounds on its rotation. So we've resolved all of that. Of course, I'm using the original shim that came on the pinion. We're going to put it all back together here, and you're going to see where we are with our backlash. So I've reassembled the carrier off camera just to save a little bit of time and not to put you guys through some repetitive things that you would see when you would rebuild any carrier. It's the reversed operation of when we disassembled it. Of course, when it comes to the drive gears, they're back in the original position that I took them from, both top and bottom. And also the spider gears, I marked them, and you can probably see that there's some yellow in here where I marked them to the case of where I wanted them to be. If you look at my short videos, you'll also see in my shorts that I showed how to assemble your clutch pack and what order these go in. And of course, they went on the gears first and placed the gears inside of the carrier. I did this without the ring gear on because the 373 ring gear is a lot thicker than the 308 factory ring gear. And if you kind of get on this level, you'll see that when you try to drive your S spring in, that it's kind of tight right here. So rather than have to fight around these teeth to get the S spring in, I assemble the clutch pack and gears before I put the ring gear on. So in order to put these spider gears in, they of course are clocked in unison. So you put them in on each one of these sides and then rotate them together until they line up with the pinholes. And I've temporarily put the pin in to hold every thing together. To get this S-spring in, basically all I did was clamp this up in a vise, and then I used a pair of needle nose vice grips to hold them tight. Got it started into the carrier, and then tapped it in with an aluminum drift, and that got this whole assembly in. When it came to the ring gear, to install the ring gear, all I did was take some of the original screws, and I've got this spinning on one of the old races. When I was preparing to put this on, all I did was temporarily put 4 of the old ring gear bolts in, and I didn't use the ring gear bolts to pull this on. I put them in so that I could line it up. Then once I had it lined up, I used my heat gun and just applied heat to the ring gear as I spun it, like you see me doing right now. And as I continued to heat it and spin it around, it expanded and plop, fell down on the face. From then I used all of the old bolts to draw it in, removed all of the old bolts, and put in the new bolts with Loctite that comes with your ring gear kit, and torque them in the patterns that it tells you. If you use one of these Ford differential manuals, it'll tell you to do that in 4 steps, up to 97 to 102 foot-pounds. I have mine torqued at 100. So that's where we are right now. Our next step is to get this into the differential housing. Of course, in the previous video, in my previous pieces, you'll see where I have already gone in and set the pinion depth and preload. That's a first shot try at this. 99% of the time, you may have to make some adjustments to get the exact, pattern that we're looking for on the drive side. But we're gonna do this as we come to it. I'm gonna put this in the housing with the original shims just to get some backlash in it. We need to know where we are. And in order to determine that, we need to get this in the housing. I'm gonna use the original shims. We're gonna take the backlash. Once we know where the backlash is, we'll adjust the backlash until we're within, Ford doesn't give you much. It gives you between 8 and 12 thousandths for your backlash. So we're going to try to get it in, get some backlash in it, make some adjustments until it's correct, and then we'll run the first pattern. The first pattern will tell us, where we are when it comes to contact with the drive and the coast. And from there, we'll determine what adjustments need to be made. And this is the piece that's going to require some patience, because we may have this in and out multiple times. We're looking for not only a nice football shaped pattern here, but where that pattern appears will be determined by pinion depth and also backlash. And a combination of those two should get us a pattern that's football shaped here on the drive side of the tooth. And that will mean a nice, quiet ring gear pinion break-in for long life. And let's take a look at it in the housing. Okay, our initial backlash comes out to be 17, which of course is too great. Our limits here are between 8 and 12 thousandths. So at 17, that means the ring gear itself needs to move closer to the pinion. And in order to move the ring gear this direction closer to the pinion, we need to add shims to this side of the carrier and then remove shims from this side of the carrier. Since the number is not exactly 1-to-1, we'll have to do a little math here, because if we want to get to 10, which our tolerance is 8 thousandths to 12 thousandths, and we're at 17, then what we'll need to add here to close that gap down to 10 isn't actually 7, because it's a ratio of 1.25 to 1. So in order to move this to get us closer to the center of our tolerance, which is 10, we'll have to add 8.75 thousandths here in order to get the 7 thousandths that we really want to move this ring gear in that direction. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep the original stock spacer that was here, and I'm going to add that 9 thousandths here. Since this is a solid spacer on the other side, I can't do that. I'm going to have to go to my kit and make up that difference. So whatever I add here, I have to remove here. That tolerance is tight, so we don't get a lot to play with. So if I need to add 8.75, which is basically 9 here, then I need to take out 9 here, which would put us, with basic math, would take us to 10, since our backlash is 17. We want to move that direction 7 thousandths. Once I get the carrier back out, get the shims all made up, get them dropped back in, we'll continue. Okay, this is attempt number 2, and we're going to record the backlash as 11. And we're going to stick with that for now. We're going to run a pattern on it real quick, and we're going to see where we are pattern-wise, and then I'll decide whether I want to try to go after that 1,000ths to make this perfect. And then, because this isn't a vehicle that gets a lot of miles or a lot of time on the highway, we'll probably just stay with 11, and from here, let's see what kind of pattern we run and see if our pinion depth is good and what we'll have to do to get everything to move in the direction we want. Okay, so this is my pinion drive pattern, and this is my coast. I'm going to spend some time now studying to see what everyone else says about this and see if I need to make an adjustment. But I'm also going to go back and look at the original gears, because this pattern looks very similar to the original gears. I do see a little bit of a sharp edge, and it may be that it's really kind of closer to the tooth than it is to the root. And it's about middle contact here, which we would probably want it up just a little bit in the tooth. But this isn't a race car, and this isn't a daily driver. But we do want a nice quiet ring gear to pinion mesh when we operate this. So I'm going to take a few minutes and I'm going to study this and we'll see what I can find about how that mesh is going. These are, of course, quality Ford Performance ring and pinions. All of the setup shims and everything that go with it are also Ford Performance parts. I took the original spacers out and used the ones from the kit because they were just so much better, and I liked the way that they were able to be configured to exactly what I wanted. It pushed the backlash basically where I wanted. I'm at 11 right now, and trying to come up with a combination to get rid of 1,000 may be a little bit difficult, so I'm happy with that. We're just going to have to determine now if we're going to live with this pattern that we just run, or if we're going to look for something a little different. I see that little football shape in there. I see where we are. We may be, like I said, a little bit high up toward the tooth instead of the root, but it blends in nice as it goes down. There's no sharp edge down in there. So let me give it some thought here, and then we'll decide whether we make a change or if we go ahead and put the slinger and the seal on and button her up. Okay, so this is where we are. I decided I didn't like that other pattern because it seemed to be a little bit shallow. And one of the things that I wanted to do is make this on the more performance side, which means that what we would have is we we'd be coming in onto our gear tooth here and exiting, of course, here. What this does is it gives us that little football shape you can kind of see is right there in the center of the tooth, but it gives us enough room to not run off on the other end if you're under hard acceleration and under power. And of course, to do that, I had to remove the pinion, took the pinion out, took off the bearing, went from a 25 thousandths shim, which was originally in the unit, and up that to 28 thousandths, reinstall it, reset my crust sleeve eliminator. I had to add 1.5 thousandths to that to get my 20 inch-pounds of rotation. Set this back up with the original shims on each side, which came out to be 17 thousandths backlash, which is too much. And so using that number, I re-shimmed it, and now I'm at 9 thousandths backlash, and I have the pattern that I'm looking for. Now, this is on the drive side. If we go to coast, you'll see that coast is a little bit low, but we can't have most of the time perfect on both sides. We spend more time on the drive than we do on the coast. So I'm okay with this coast. I'm going to rotate it around a few times just to make sure that it's nice and quiet, and I think we're going to go with that. And the next piece of the video, we'll have this all buttoned up. I'm going to flip it over. I'm going to knock the seal on, and of course install the slinger, then put on the seal, and then I'll install the pinion flange, and from there we'll be ready to button it all up. Got a new cover for it, and I'll show you guys a little bit of that. And to save some time under the car, I'm going to take the first quart of differential fluid and pour it directly in here. Put the case on, of course, with the friction modifier. And then once it's all level, I'll probably just set it up here. I'll set it up here and remove the plug on the other side with the differential completely level. I will top it off so that when it's ready to go into the car, it'll be ready. And of course, you have to put the axles and those things in first. If you don't, the fluid will pour out. But you guys, this is more about the differential than it is how to install and remove axles. Of course, we're just going to push them in, put the C-clips on, pull them back, and then put the cross pin back in. I have a new cross pin bolt for this with Loctite. This is the old one. You can see it's not tight. It's just holding this in so that we can do all this mock-up. And once I set all of that up, I'll be back. Okay, so we've come full circle. I've got the backlash set at 9. I've got the preload set at 20 inch-pounds. 373 gears are in. Got my SVE cover on. I've already filled it with oil after I leveled it and put the 2 quarts and the friction inhibitor in it. So this is the full bill. Got the axles, everything back in. Main bearing caps are torqued to 95 foot-pounds. Got the cross pin in. It's torqued to 22 foot-pounds. I've already reinstalled the brake lines with a new flexible brake line to connect to the chassis, and I replaced the original pinion flange with a new one, new seal, slingers in. Basically, we're ready to go back in the car now. Of course, I've got brand new bushings in for the upper control arms. It's all painted and preserved. And so the next part of this would be for it to go back into the car, and I'll take you guys out for a drive. And as we run this in, of course, we can't do any real spirited driving for a few miles. We'll run it and change the oil, but from start to finish, this is my 1990 Mustang GT 8.8 differential. It's been removed, the 308 gears removed, and the complete setup for 373 put in. All the specs are good. We're ready to go back and make some noise. Get out there and build something, guys.